Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a little idea that changed my life, an idea so simple, most people walk right past it. You see, if you want to predict a person's future, you don't have to look at their dreams. Everybody has dreams. You don't even have to look at their goals. Most people write them once and never look at them again. No, if you really want to predict a person's future, look at their mornings, because your morning tells the truth long before your words do. Your morning shows the philosophy you're building, not the one you're wishing for. Now, I call this the morning gap, that quiet space between who you are and who you could be. And the question every day is the same. What will you place in that gap? Comfort or discipline? Wishful thinking or purposeful action? Because that first decision of the day sets the tone for everything that follows. If you start the day negotiating with your mind, you'll end the day negotiating with your life. Let me tell you something I learned early. Every day has a price. You can pay it early with discipline, or you can pay it later with regret, but you will pay. And mornings magnify whichever price you choose. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret, oh, that one weighs tons. And most people carry that weight year after year because they never learn to pay the smaller price when the sun first comes up. So today I want to give you a simple truth. One of the most powerful truths Mr. Schoaf ever taught me. Your future is designed in the first minutes of your day. Not at the end, not after the chaos, not when everything settles down. No, life doesn't wait for you to get ready. The world doesn't give you success because you need it. It gives you success because you prepared for it. And the preparation begins the moment your feet hit the floor. In this lesson, we're going to explore why your mornings matter, how your brain rewires itself in those first 10 minutes, and the one simple habit, the little daily price that forces your mind to choose discipline over comfort. We'll talk about how this single act can shift the entire direction of your day, how consistency compounds into character, and why the person you become is far more important than anything you achieve. So let's begin with a truth most people never consider, but one you must understand if you want your life to rise to new levels. Now, let's continue. One of the great misunderstandings in the modern world is this idea that motivation is the secret to success. People say, Jim, if I could just stay motivated, I'd finally get my life together. But let me tell you, motivation is a wonderful thing. It's just not dependable. It's a spark, not a strategy. It gets you started, yes, but the moment life gets heavy, the moment you don't feel like it, motivation slips out the back door and leaves you alone with your excuses. You don't build a strong life on something that's fragile. You don't build a powerful future on something that disappears every time the weather changes. No, if you want a life that grows, that expands, that strengthens you year after year, you must build it on something sturdier, something more reliable. And that, my friends, is routine. Routine is the architecture of discipline. Routine is what you do whether you feel like it or not. You see, the body loves comfort, the mind loves familiarity, and both will fight you when you try to change. But routine is the great equalizer. Routine takes your emotions out of the driver's seat and puts your philosophy back behind the wheel. Let me put it simply. You don't need to feel good to do good. But if you do good long enough, you will eventually feel good. That's the difference. Motivation says, feel right first. But routine says, act right first. And when you act right consistently, you begin to think right, and pretty soon you start to feel right. That's how people transform. Not by waiting for a wave of inspiration, no, by building a pattern strong enough to carry them on the days when inspiration is nowhere to be found. Your brain works the same way. It seeks patterns. It looks for stability, and the first pattern you set each morning becomes the tone for the whole day. If you begin with discipline, the brain looks for more discipline. If you begin with distraction, the brain looks for more distraction. The first 5 minutes of your morning are like a compass. Set it correctly, and you'll head in the right direction almost automatically. So let's drop the illusion of motivation, and let's embrace the real mechanism of change. The daily routine strong enough to shape your mind, your habits, and your destiny. Now the question becomes, if routine is the power, what routine should you build? What price should you pay each morning? And that brings us to the next part of our lesson. Now that we understand the difference between the illusion of motivation and the power of routine, Let's talk about a principle that has shaped every high achiever I've ever met. I call it the morning price. Here's the truth. Every day comes with a bill, and you don't get to skip it. You either pay the price early with discipline, or you pay it late with disappointment. But one way or another, life collects. Most people don't like that idea. They say, Jim, can't I just have the success without the struggle? Well, I've been around the world, and I've never met anyone who found a shortcut to character, a bargain sale on discipline, or a discount rack for personal greatness. If you want a better life, you must pay for it full price, up front. That's the rule. But here's the real secret. The morning is the cheapest time to pay. That's when the cost is smallest. That's when your mind is clearest. That's when your willpower is freshest. You see, in the morning, you don't yet have the weight of the day on your back. You haven't fought battles, made decisions, faced noise, or burned your energy. You're standing at the starting line with everything available. There is no negotiation in the morning unless you invite it. And most people do. They start the day bargaining with the alarm clock, reasoning with their excuses, debating their responsibilities. But let me tell you, if you begin your day with a negotiation, you will spend your whole day in negotiation, and a negotiated life never leads to excellence. Instead, you must begin with a payment, a deliberate, intentional act that tells your mind, today we choose discipline. Not comfort, not convenience, discipline. Why? Because the brain follows the first signal. The first win of the day invites more wins. The first moment of clarity invites more clarity. The first disciplined act becomes the seed that shapes the next hour and the next and the next. Remember one of my favorite ideas. Life responds to seed, not need. You can need a better life all you want. It won't change a thing. But plant one disciplined seed at sunrise, and suddenly the whole day begins to respond differently. Let me tell you why this is so powerful. When you pay the morning price, you declare who's in charge. You're telling your emotions, your doubts, and your limitations, you don't run this show, I do. That single declaration made through action, not words, can transform the direction of an entire day. And repeated daily, it can transform the direction of a life. So the question becomes, what exactly do we pay each morning? What is the price? And how do we make it small enough to do consistently, yet powerful enough to change everything? That's what we'll explore next. Now that we understand the principle of paying the price early, let me give you something practical, something simple enough to do every morning, yet powerful enough to change the trajectory of your entire life. You see, people often ask me, Jim, what should I do first thing in the morning? What's the very best way to begin? And I always tell them this, start with a small seed you can plant every day. Not a garden, just a seed. So let me show you a little ritual, just 10 minutes, that can force your mind to choose discipline, even on the days you feel tired, discouraged, or uninspired. 10 minutes, that's the daily price. But oh, what a return it pays. Let's break it into 3 simple parts. Step 1, 3 minutes of gratitude with awareness. I like to begin with gratitude. You say, Jim, why gratitude? Because gratitude quiets the noise. Gratitude settles the mind. Gratitude keeps you from starting the day in comparison, frustration, or hurry. And let me tell you, if you begin your day with envy, the whole day becomes heavier. But if you begin with gratitude, life becomes lighter, opportunities become visible, and problems become manageable. I often say, learn to appreciate what you have while pursuing all you want. Both are necessary. Appreciation builds the foundation. Ambition builds the house. So spend 3 minutes each morning acknowledging what's working, what's improving, and what's already a blessing. Doesn't have to be fancy, just honest. And the mind will begin to settle into a place where discipline feels natural instead of forced. Step 2, 3 minutes of goals with clarity. Now, once the mind is steady, the next step is clarity. Take another 3 minutes and write your goals, not all of them, just a few important ones. A short-term goal, a long-term goal, and a character goal. That's right, who you want to be, not just what you want to get. Why character? Because the purpose of goals is not only to achieve them, but to grow into the kind of person who can achieve them again and again. Your goals are shaping you long before you reach them, and when you write them each morning, you remind your mind which direction to move toward. Without that clarity, the day pulls you in every direction except the one that builds your future. Remember, a day without direction is a day wasted, but a day with direction is a day invested. Spend 3 minutes investing. Step 3, 4 minutes of reading with intention. Now, let's spend the last 4 minutes reading something purposeful. Not scrolling, not noise. Choose a page or two from a book that lifts, teaches, guides, or challenges you. I used to tell people, miss a meal if you must, but don't miss your reading, because reading builds your philosophy, and your philosophy determines your life. Those 4 minutes will do something very important. They place a mentor in your mind for the day. They fill your thinking with ideas stronger than your emotions, wiser than your impulses, steadier than your fears. Read a little each morning, and pretty soon you'll think better, decide better, and behave better almost automatically. The result, a mind that favors discipline over comfort? Now let me tell you what all of this creates. When you begin the day with this small ritual gratitude, goals, and good ideas, you activate the best part of your mind. You set the compass. You create direction. You cast a vote for the disciplined version of yourself. And once the brain receives that first vote, it begins to cast the rest for you. You become more consistent, more focused, more responsible, more intentional. Why? Because you paid the price early, and life always rewards those who pay early. This 10-minute routine is the seed. And remember, life doesn't respond to need. It responds to seed. Plant this seed each morning, and you'll be amazed at how the day begins to cooperate with you. Now, let's explore what's happening inside the mind when you practice this ritual, why it works, and why your brain begins to choose discipline almost without effort. Now, let's talk about why this little ritual works so well. Why 10 minutes in the morning can influence 10 hours of effort. Why a few small disciplines at dawn can make you stronger all day long. And the answer is simple. Your brain always obeys the first instruction you give it. The first signal of the day becomes the marching order for the mind. See, the brain doesn't ask, is this comfortable? It asks, is this our pattern? And whatever you repeat becomes the pattern. When you begin your morning with purpose, 3 minutes of gratitude, 3 minutes of goals, 4 minutes of good reading, you send a very clear message to your brain. Today, we choose direction. Today, we choose responsibility. Today, we choose discipline. And once the brain receives that message, it begins aligning your emotions, your energy, and your decisions to match it. That's the power of a first act done well. Most people don't realize they're training their brain too, just in the wrong direction. They wake up, grab the phone, scroll the noise, absorb the chaos, react to the world before they even know who they are. And that becomes their first instruction. React, distract, avoid. And the brain obeys that too, but not you. Not after today. Let me show you something the scientists discovered that I believe Mr. Schoaf understood long before the researchers ever put it on a chart. The mind creates what's called a reward loop. When you complete even a small task, writing a goal, reading one paragraph, the brain releases a little hit of accomplishment, a little dopamine, a little spark that says, good job, let's do some more. And once that spark ignites, it makes hard things easier and easy things meaningful. But here's the real treasure. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you increase your self-trust. And every time you break a promise, you decrease it. That's the mechanism behind discipline. Discipline is not just action. Discipline is trust. The trust that you can count on your own word. The trust that you'll follow through. The trust that you've become the kind of person who does what needs to be done. People with weak discipline are not weak people. They're simply people with too many broken promises inside. You're rebuilding that trust every morning. One small promise kept, one small win honored, one small seed planted. And here's another piece of the puzzle. Once the brain trusts you to act, it stops resisting you. It stops arguing. It stops negotiating. It begins to cooperate. When the brain gets used to discipline early in the day, it starts favoring the harder choices later. Instead of should I, must I, do I feel like it, The mind says, we've already chosen the path. Let's continue. The hesitation disappears. The confusion fades. The emotional resistance weakens. Hard things don't become less hard, they just become more natural. Think about it like this. Willpower is strongest at sunrise and weakest at sunset. So you're using the strongest moment of the day to build the strongest part of yourself. That's how you make progress automatic. That's how you turn discipline from something you fight for into something you flow with. And pretty soon, the day starts aligning around you. Opportunities become clearer. Distractions lose their grip. Decisions take less time. And the person you've been trying to become begins to show up without you dragging them into existence. That's not magic, that's wiring. And wiring leads to identity, and identity leads to destiny. Now, once the mind starts favoring discipline, something remarkable begins to happen. One habit begins to grow into another. One small win becomes the root of a whole new identity. And that's what we'll talk about next. Let's continue. Now that we've seen how a simple morning ritual begins to rewire the brain, it's time to understand what happens next, because the real magic isn't the 10 minutes. The real magic is the identity those 10 minutes begin to build. You see, success doesn't start with talent. It doesn't start with money. It doesn't even start with luck. It starts with identity, who you believe you are, what you believe you deserve, what you believe you're capable of. Your identity is the thermostat of your life. No matter what progress you make, you will always return to the level of your self-image. But here's the good news. One small act of discipline, done consistently, starts changing that thermostat. Let me explain it the way Mr. Schoaf explained it to me all those years ago. He said, Jim, every disciplined effort counts. And every disciplined effort carries with it multiple rewards. Not one reward, not two, multiple. Because discipline never lives alone. Discipline brings friends. Here's what I mean. The moment you keep that first promise in the morning, even a small one, you experience the first ripple, self-respect. You say, I did what I said I would do. That's a powerful sentence. Most people haven't said it in years. With more self-respect comes the second ripple, self-confidence. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to believe that maybe, just maybe, you can follow through on the bigger things too. With confidence comes the third ripple, clarity. Your decisions become quicker. Your priorities sharpen. Your distractions shrink. You no longer chase everything, you pursue what matters. And with clarity comes the fourth ripple, momentum. Now, you're not pushing your life up the hill. Your life begins pulling you forward. You feel the wind at your back instead of in your face. Hard things become easier, not because the world changed, but because you changed. And before long, these ripples form something deeper, identity. And identity is the birthplace of transformation. You wake up one morning and you realize something surprising. You are no longer the kind of person who tries to be disciplined. You've become the person who is disciplined. You're no longer the person who hopes for good habits. You've become the person who keeps good habits. You're no longer the person who wants a better life. You're the one who builds it, brick by brick, morning by morning. That's the ripple effect. And here's something else. Once you change your identity, you stop sabotaging yourself. You don't ask, can I do it anymore? You ask, what's the next step? You stop avoiding discomfort and start seeking growth. You stop being intimidated by challenges and start being energized by them. You stop waiting for a perfect moment and start creating one each day. I've seen this transformation countless times. One tiny habit, done early, done daily, becomes the seed of a whole new life. And it always begins the same way, with one small act of discipline at sunrise that grows into a giant tree of character by sunset. But of course, as with every worthwhile journey, there are obstacles, there are enemies, there are forces that try to pull you back into your old patterns. And if you're not prepared for them, they will steal your mornings and your momentum. So next, let's talk about the three great enemies of morning discipline and how to defeat each one long before it defeats you. Now that we've seen how one small discipline can ripple into a whole new identity, we need to talk about the forces that work against you, the little thieves that sneak into your morning and steal the progress you're trying to make. Because every meaningful change has opposition. Every new discipline has resistance. And every strong beginning has an enemy waiting right beside it. Let me introduce you to the three great enemies of morning discipline. Enemy has shown the snooze button, the first negotiation of the day. The snooze button is subtle, but it's powerful. It doesn't look dangerous. It doesn't make any noise except that gentle little reminder that says just 5 more minutes. But let me tell you, those 5 minutes are expensive. Because the snooze button isn't stealing your sleep, it's stealing your leadership. You see, the first moment of the morning is the first test of the day. And the test is simple. Will you lead your mind, or will you let your mind lead you? When you hit snooze, you're not just buying more rest, you're teaching your brain that your feelings are in charge. And if feelings run your morning, they'll run your whole day. And if they run your day, they'll run your life. So here's the rule. Don't negotiate with the alarm clock. Stand up when it rings. That one act of leadership carries through the next 24 hours. Enemy #2, the distracted mind, starting the day, reacting instead of creating. The second enemy is distraction, especially the digital kind. Most people start their morning inside someone else's priority list. They check messages. They scroll social feeds. They step into the world's noise before they even step into their own purpose. And that is a dangerous beginning. Because if you start your day reacting, you will spend the whole day reacting. If your first input is chaos, your mind becomes chaotic. If your first input is comparison, your mind becomes small. If your first input is urgency, your mind becomes rushed. Remember what I always say. Don't start your day until you finish it on paper. That means you decide the direction. You set the tone, not the world, not the phone, not the noise. So put the distractions aside for the first few minutes. Give your future the first appointment of the day. Enemy #3, the poor evening. The sabotage no one notices. The third enemy doesn't show up in the morning, it shows up the night before. A poor evening destroys a strong morning. Staying up too late, consuming the wrong things, staying in the wrong conversations, letting the day bleed into the night. It all takes a toll. Your evening philosophy determines your morning possibility. A chaotic evening leads to a sluggish morning. A distracted evening leads to a confused morning. A careless evening leads to a compromised morning. If you want a disciplined dawn, you must prepare for it at dusk. Lay out the book you'll read. Place your journal on the table. Put your phone across the room. Set the stage so the morning has no obstacles, only direction. Defeating the enemies. If you can defeat these three opponents, the snooze button, the distracted mind, and the poor evening, you've already won half the battle of self-mastery. Because the great secret is this. The strongest mornings come from the quiet decisions made the night before. And once you conquer these enemies, the rewards begin flowing in ways you cannot imagine. In the next section, we'll talk about those rewards, the compound effect that transforms one small daily discipline into a lifetime of confidence, clarity, and self-respect. Now that we've defeated the enemies of discipline, let me show you something extraordinary, something most people never take seriously enough. It's called the compound effect. And if you understand this principle, truly understand it, you'll never again underestimate the power of a small, humble, daily discipline. Let me put it in simple terms. What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. A single disciplined morning will make you feel good, but 30 disciplined mornings will make you different. See, one of the great truths I learned early in life is this. You don't transform your life by making huge changes. Once you transform it by making small changes repeatedly. And here's the wonderful part. Discipline compounds. It grows. It multiplies. It builds on itself. Let me give you the 2 laws of the compound effect. Law has shown failure is simple errors in judgment repeated every day. Skip the morning routine once it feels harmless. Skip it a second time, it becomes familiar. Skip it a third time, and now it's a habit. A habit of drifting. A habit of neglect. A habit of regret. But here's the beautiful opposite. Law has to. Success is simple disciplines practiced every day. Do the ritual once it feels small. Do it for a week, it feels meaningful. Do it for 30 days, it feels natural. And once it feels natural, it becomes identity. That's when transformation happens. Not when you say, I want to be disciplined, but when you say, I am disciplined. Not when you hope for confidence, but when you build confidence one kept promise at a time. Let me tell you what begins to appear after 30 days of consistency. 1. Emotional stability. When you start your day with intention, your emotions no longer pull you in every direction. You're anchored. You're centered. You're harder to shake. 2. Higher self-esteem. Every time you follow through, you send a message to yourself. I can count on me. And believe me, there's nothing more powerful than that sentence. 3. Greater willpower. Willpower grows when you use it. It weakens when you avoid it. 30 days of disciplined morning strengthens the muscle you use for every important decision. 4. Clearer thinking. A mind exposed to good ideas in the first minutes of the day becomes more intelligent in the next hours of the day. Clarity is the natural reward of morning wisdom. 5. Direction and momentum. Instead of wandering through the day looking for purpose, you begin the day with purpose and momentum becomes automatic. 6. A new ratio of wins. If you win the morning, you win the day. If you win enough days, you win the week. Enough weeks, the month. Enough months, the year. And enough years, you win a life. This is the compound effect. It takes the small and makes it mighty. It takes the ordinary and makes it remarkable. It takes the inconsistent and makes them unshakable. And here's the part most people never expect. After 30 days, the morning ritual stops being something you have to do and becomes something you want to do. Why? Because the results feel good. The progress feels good. The order feels good. And the discipline begins to feel like freedom. So remember, it's not the size of the discipline that changes a life. It's the consistency of it. Give yourself 30 days, and the mirror inside your mind, the one that shows you who you are, will start reflecting a stronger, clearer, more capable version of you. Now let's bring all of this home, because every journey needs a closing challenge, a final invitation to rise, to act, to build the life you were designed for. And that's what we'll cover next. Now, let's bring this entire message together. We've talked about the morning. We've talked about the price. We've talked about the ritual, the rewiring, the enemies, and the compound effect. But none of it matters, not one word, unless you decide to act. And action doesn't start tomorrow at sunrise. Action begins tonight. I used to tell my audiences, the best time to set your future in motion is the moment before you go to sleep. Because the truth is, tomorrow's discipline is born in tonight's decisions. A clean desk, a prepared journal, a chosen book, a phone placed across the room, a mind settled on a purpose. These small, simple steps create an environment where discipline becomes easier, not harder. You see, success is built on two things: design and desire. Desire gives you the spark, the emotion, the inspiration. But design, that's what carries you on the days when desire takes a nap. If you want your mornings to change your life, you must design them so they can. So tonight, ask yourself, what will I do tomorrow morning that makes me proud? What promise will I keep? What price will I pay early so regret doesn't come knocking later? Don't wait for the perfect day. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the chaos of life to magically disappear. It won't. But you don't need it to. All you need is 10 quiet minutes and the decision to give those minutes a purpose. Tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes, you'll have a choice. Comfort or discipline, habit or drift, progress or postponement. And the beautiful part is, you don't need to choose correctly forever. You only need to choose correctly once per day. Just once. And over time, those choices accumulate into a life you're proud to live. My final encouragement to you is simple. Give yourself the gift of a disciplined beginning. Plant one small seed each morning, gratitude, goals, good ideas, and watch how the world begins to cooperate. Watch how opportunities appear. Watch how your confidence builds. Watch how your identity strengthens. The receipt of discipline is always freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from regret. Freedom from the old version of yourself. So tonight, design your morning. And tomorrow, pay the price early. Because once you take charge of the morning, you take charge of your life.